Alright guys, this is Mr. Grimslin here. We're talking about 5A in your packet, which is the geography of ancient Greece, so geographical influences on Greek culture. So the first big thing, as you can see from this map, Greece is kind of surrounded by water. It's surrounded on three sides, which means it's a peninsula. So because it's surrounded by water, the Greeks are going to be really good at trading. They're going to trade over time. And due to the water, they're going to become skilled sailors. They're going to learn how to fish. They're going to learn how to trade and travel to distant areas on the Mediterranean Sea. So water is going to be the big thing with the ancient Greeks. Um, as far as the land of ancient Greece, it's in Greece today. Much of it is mountainous and impassable. So basically, that means that small city-states are going to grow up kind of in isolation from each other. So you might have a small stretch of farmland that might be good for a city in one area, and then you might have, a couple hundred miles away another area that's good. So these city-states are going to pop up in different areas. They're going to be kind of separate from each other, and they're going to grow their own distinct cultures and their own distinct kind of ways of life. So because there's limited fresh water, there's not a lot of farmland because there's so much mountainous area, and there's not really a whole lot of good natural resources. The Greeks are going to seek new land for colonies. So this map kind of shows you kind of some of the areas that the Greeks were colonizing, whether it's northern Africa, the Mediterranean Sea, or all the way almost into modern day Spain or Italy. There's a lot of areas that the Greeks are going to colonize. Um, so moving on to the Mycenaean civilization. This is kind of the first civilization from ancient Greece. These are kind of the first Greeks. If you know nothing else from the Mycenaeans, know that they're the first Greeks. They were part of the same Indo-European migrations from Eurasia that we talked about with the Aryans in India. Remember we talked about how the Aryans kind of invaded India and took control there. There's also a group of those Indo-Europeans that are going to move into Greece, and they're going to become the Mycenaeans. So they adapted some Minoan cultural aspects, and they also fought in an alleged Trojan War with the city-state of Troy. Um, and the Trojan War is just kind of an interesting story. Allegedly, the Mycenaean civilization went to war against Troy because the Trojan, or the king of Troy, kind of stole one of the wives of the king of Sparta and went back with her to Troy. So the Mycenaean king was not happy about this. They went to war for 10 years. Eventually, the Mycenaeans built a giant wooden horse and hid a bunch of soldiers in there. Once they got inside the walls of the city, they released the soldiers and kind of sacked the city and won the war that way. Whether or not you believe that happened or not is actually up for debate. Um, so the Mycenaean civilization is going to kind of decrease in influence after that Trojan War. And then the Minoans are going to come through. They're going to be located on Crete, which is an island in the Mediterranean. The Minoans, well, I should say they kind of existed simultaneously and actually a little before the Mycenaeans. So they learned how to trade. They were seafaring people, which means they fished, they traded. They had a language and writing system. They had great works of art, as you can see from this pot. It's kind of cool. They had their own distinct religion, and their culture is going to influence the Mycenaeans and ultimately the Greeks later on. So the last group we talk about, once the Mycenaeans kind of crumble after that Trojan War, we're going to have the Dorians come through, and they're going to move into the Greek area. We kind of call this the Dark Ages of Greece civilization because they don't have a writing system; they're not as advanced. But because they don't have writing, this is going to lead to a development of an oral tradition. This is going to lead to an oral tradition, and you're going to have like storytelling take place. So there's going to be epics, which are narrative poems, and there's going to be myths, which are kind of traditional stories, usually about the gods. An example would be the guy credited with creating the Iliad and the Odyssey, which is Homer. He's going to create these stories through word of mouth, these amazing poems, and he's going to spread them all throughout Greece. Eventually, once the Greeks figure out how to get a writing system down again, they're going to copy him down, and that's how we still have them today. So Homer and kind of people like him preserved the tradition of the Mycenaeans and the Minoans by these epic myths and these narrative poems. Alright, so that's ancient Greek geography, and next video we'll talk a little bit about mythology.